I have a nursing background. I'm Canadian initially, but then did a nursing degree. Came to London, actually to my master's at the London School in 2011, where I focused on public health. And after finishing that, it was like an amazing year of education. I fell in love with the school, I fell in love with London. And I decided to, kind of based on what I'd learned, that I wanted to go and do work abroad in sub-Saharan Africa. So I spent about four and a half years working on humanitarian programming with a focus on outbreak response. So I worked in the really big Ebola response in West Africa in 2014, 2015. You know, I think I've always known that as much as I love academia, I didn't want to be an academic. And not like doing a DrPH means you can't be an academic, but it's much more intended for people who intend to stay in practice. And I wanted the robust research skills I would get from a DrPH. So like really kind of how do you interrogate a research question? How do you design a study? How do you run that study? How do you write it up and get it published? I wanted all of that, but I wanted it in a very practical setting. I found the top modules very helpful. I mean, they're not methods courses, so they are quite theoretical, but I think they opened my eyes to different ways of thinking about policy or management problems that I hadn't necessarily ever seen written down before. I mean, I had worked as a manager, I had worked kind of lightly in policy, but I never really had frameworks to kind of think through these problems. So for my OPA, which I did with my old organization, Go Global, so I was still kind of working for them part-time when I did it, which was really, it worked out really well because I had a lot of insider knowledge. I had the opportunity to engage with them and how to come up with a research question that was applicable to my interests as well as something that would be very useful for them. And what we ended up going with was essentially how did we take the learning from West Africa's Ebola outbreak and transfer some of that knowledge to other countries where the organization worked. I did my fieldwork in Sierra Leone in quite a rural setting. So my days were often on the back of a motorcycle, kind of driving to kind of very rural spaces, covered in dust, with my incredible research assistant that I'd hired in country, sitting down with groups of women, talking about their reproductive health journeys during the Ebola outbreak. I've been to, goodness, at least 4 or 5 conferences. I've been to a couple that were very related to my thesis research, so around family planning. In Rwanda, I went to the International Conference on Family Planning. I did the Research Degrees Poster Day before I started my thesis research. That was really nice because in the end you get a lot of feedback from your supervisory team, but not necessarily from other profs unless you really seek it out. So doing the poster day gives you an opportunity to get feedback from your fellow students, but also from professors outside of your kind of quite narrow group. I see myself probably working for either a mid-sized NGO with a focus on humanitarian health. I'd like to kind of be their research director kind of role, or potentially working for more of a think tank type body. So I'm thinking of the Overseas Development Institute or something similar. To build your network as much as possible while you're there, whether you're online or in person. The wealth of knowledge that people at the school have is incredible. And the kind of 3 degrees of separation to pretty much anybody you would ever want to meet is possible from the school. So if you can connect with people who are in the field that you're interested in, chances are they know somebody at the NGO that you're interested in working with, or at the WHO body, or in that donor group. So it's really important to kind of build positive working relationships while you're there. Yeah, I'm going to miss the school when I leave. I'm going to try to maintain some kind of connection.